Day of creating an effective content strategy with AI. And so what I'm going to do is kind of a follow on to last week's session where I created a unique value proposition, UVP, with ChatGPT and using the dictation feature. And I did that very quickly, did that in about 15 minutes on the last live. So that's the live from Friday. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do something very similar. And I'm going to continue on the same chat. And what I'm going to do is create a content plan. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you a few different things that I think about when I'm doing content strategy and planning content. First thing I want to do here is just bring up kind of an overview for you and just put this in perspective. So when I'm working with my coaching clients, this is kind of the process where I take them through. So we start, obviously, like every consulting or coaching engagement, we look at the existing situation. And the first thing to look at really is specialization and positioning, because that's the cornerstone, the foundation. And if you don't have that right, then nothing else that follows will be built on solid foundation. So once we figure out the specialization and positioning, sometimes we need to work on that, sometimes we don't. You may already have that nailed down. Then we start looking at the messaging and the way that we talk about the positioning. And that's where things like point of view and branding come in. And then the next part is the content strategy. And I think of that like a thought leadership content strategy. And this is the part that we're going to look at today. So we're going to look at creating a content strategy, content pillars, and content calendar. We'll see how that part goes, because it depends on the time that we have. I'm going to run this live stream for about 30 minutes or so. And I welcome your questions as well. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat wherever you see this, and it should pop up here in front of me in my Restream studio. Okay, so that's the overview. That's just to put all of this in context. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this share for a moment, and I am going to share my phone screen again. And so now, let's see if we can bring this up. Just bear with me a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my phone screen using ChatGPT, and I'm going to share the same session that I was sharing from last week. So, okay, looks like this is working correctly. Okay, so here we go. So this is the session that I did last week on, this was the session that I did on unique point of view. So UVP, unique value proposition. And so here is the full chat from that. So now what I'm going to do today, and this I just asked a few more questions here talking about content planning and things just as promo for this live stream. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to again use the dictation feature, and that's why I'm using the app on the phone rather than using the website version. And I'm going to start working on the content strategy. And so let me just bring that up. Okay, so I'm going to start out with super basics. So what I want you to do is help me to start to plan out a content strategy for the business that we talked about already. Before we do that, can you just give me a quick review of what we have discussed about the business positioning and what we do for our clients and who the ideal target market is? I just want to review to make sure that we're on the same page. And this is something that's useful to do if you're going back to a previous chat, just to make sure. So I'm going to just submit that. And so now it's working away. I don't know why it's not letting me kind of scroll up here. So it is working away on this. I don't know why the kind of the keyboard part stays up there. But now let's see. There we go. Okay. So we talked about, we discussed formulating UVP for your independent consulting business. Focus was creating a concise UVP to be used in marketing, and helpful to have. So it's asking to reiterate. So, okay, so it seems to either have forgotten or no longer have those details. So we're going to have to go back over some of those basics. So just bear with me. We'll be able to do this much quicker today. based on what we did last time. Okay, so what I want to get your help with here is I want you to, first of all, create the basic positioning statement. And in that format that we discussed, I help these people solve this problem by doing this so that they can do this. And in this case, the positioning statement is I help independent consultants and experts to rapidly build authority by creating content so that they can command premium fees, work with better fit clients, and have more free time. So now I want you to take that and expand that and ask me questions so that we can actually come up with the content strategy. All right, so this is not perfect. And when I started doing the live stream, I actually didn't expect that I would have to give it this information again, but c'est la vie. But in this case, we just have to go back over it. So now I'm just getting it to go through those things. And again, the prompt that I'm giving it here is not perfect. And you may want to, if you're not under pressure on a live stream, you may want to put a bit more effort into making that prompt a bit better. But you can see that it's got this here. So it's just asking me the questions again. And what this does is this just lets me go through these questions and answer them really quickly. So that's what I'm going to do here. Okay, so let's see, and it's still working away with the answers here. It's looking at, so now it's taken, so what I asked it there, I did ask it to ask me questions so we come up with the content strategy. So it's starting to get into the content strategy now. And this is really useful. I think that one of the best ways to use ChatGPT and any of the AIs is to actually ask it to ask you questions, because then that will tease out. And that's why I think the using the voice dictation feature is really useful, because you can work with it much quicker in that way. And so we can see here, who exactly are the independent consultants experts you're targeting, any specific industries or fields, what are the common challenges they're facing, what are the key messages you want to convey through your content, what action do you want your audience to take after consuming your content, are there any particular topics or themes, and that's what we want to work on, and what content formats do you believe will be most effective, and then content distribution, measurement and analysis, and then competitor analysis. So today, I'm not going to look at measurement or competitor analysis. I'm just going to answer the other questions here. So to answer your questions, the independent consultants and experts who I target are in a broad range of fields, but they are typically experts at what they do, but they do not have a strong personal brand or wide visibility. And that is something that they want to achieve. The common challenges that they face in building authority and commanding premium fees is that they're not recognized or known, and so they may be commoditized compared with their competitors. So in terms of content goals, the key messages that I want to convey through the content, I'm not really sure what those, and I want your help with that. The action that I want the audience to take after consuming the content is I want them to reach out to me, to work with me, or subscribe to my email list. Are there any particular are there any particular topics or themes that resonate well with my target audience? Lead generation and inbound lead generation is something that resonates really well. In terms of content formats that I believe would be effective, I think that all of those could be effective, but the ones that I'm particularly good at are videos, blog posts, and podcasts, and live streams. In terms of where my target audience typically hang out or consume content, mostly they are hanging out on LinkedIn. Some of them are on Instagram. And I also like to do live streams and put that on YouTube. And in terms of the existing platforms or channels that I have, I'm willing to explore new channels, but I think that I should focus on LinkedIn first and foremost. And I don't want to look at measurement analysis or competitor analysis right now. Can you take all of my answers and start to put together the content strategy for me? Okay, so again, it's just being conversational and giving it the information that it's asked for here. And let's see what it comes up with. So, okay, so if I scroll up, it makes the keyboard go away so you can see the full thing. All right. So here we go. The core message and content themes, content formats. So this is a decent start now for a content strategy. And so now we can, and then distribution, so LinkedIn. So this is great because this is now giving us the start of a full content strategy. Again, it's not perfect, but this is the 80-20 or more than the 80-20. This is the 95-5. Okay, so now we have the guts of a really good content strategy here. And again, like I've just spent 10 minutes answering some really basic questions here. And one of the things that I find with using any of these tools is that what you need to do is you need to refine it. So I kind of think of like these tools, it's a bit like I guess maybe one example would be, or one analogy might be like the pottery wheel that spins with the clay on it. So it's doing most of the work, but you still need to actually shape the clay. So I don't know if that's a perfect analogy, but it certainly does speed up the whole process of creating things, but you still need to refine it and work on it. But I think this is pretty damn good now for what it is. So we have core message, showcase the importance of building a personal brand of visibility for independent consultants and experts, how to differentiate them in the credit market, preventing commoditization. Right. So now, one of the things about this, and I mentioned this on the last live stream, when I chose to do this for my business because I know that I can answer the questions about my business very quickly. I could choose to do this live demo for you for somebody else's business. The problem with that would be it would be very stop-start because I wouldn't know how to answer all of the questions for them. So that's why I've chosen to do it for my specific business here. But you can do this for yours, and it'll have all of these for you and for the challenges that your clients are facing. Okay, so here we have core message, content themes, content formats. So I'm going to see, can I dive into the content themes a little bit more here? So I want to dive into the content themes and actually come up with some pillar topics for the content that I can create. Can you give me a simple, concise list of topics that I should cover in my content when I start to create content to generate leads and to build authority in this area? Now, one concern I have about this is because it may be a little bit meta because I'm talking about building authority and I'm talking about creating content to build authority. So, but hopefully that'll be okay. So now I'll just scroll up to get, so here we go. So it's starting to give some more. So it's talking about personal branding, unique value proposition, which we already did, visual identity, content creation for authority building, video marketing for consultants, podcasting, lead generation strategies. So it's creating all these topics that we could talk about here. Okay. So now the way that I approach it, so what it's done is it's given us this list of things that we could talk about. And I want to refine this down because I like to boil this down and distill it to a super simple list. So I want you to take that list of topics and I want you to refine it and distill it down. I only want a list of 1 or 2 word items in the list so that it is really simple and very easy to see the high level topics. I also want you to drop SEO because that's not something I want to talk about. And there you go, because SEO is not something that I particularly want to talk about. I know a lot about SEO because I used to have an SEO agency, but it's not really something that I want to talk about these days. So I think that in terms of building authority and creating content, I think that SEO should come naturally from the content that you should create, but it shouldn't be something that you really focus on. So let's see, is this working on? Is this working? Okay, so it's refined the list. Okay, So now we have a really simple list here. You can see personal branding, authority content, video marketing, podcasting, lead generation, community building. That's one I hadn't thought about. That's interesting. Success stories. I don't know if success stories should be here, because success stories, I wouldn't, I can imagine writing a blog post, for example, about podcasting, but I can't imagine writing a blog post about success stories. It doesn't seem to kind of fit. It doesn't seem to be in the same kind of category. Monetization. I don't tend to think of monetization that way. Monetization comes naturally, and I would think of monetization more in terms of sales. So I'm going to ask it to remove those. Okay, so please remove success stories, monetization, and tools from the list, and give me the simplified list again. Okay, so there we go. The reason I'm scrolling up and then down is just to clear away the keyboard so you can see it easier. Okay, so now we have a list of pillar topics that we can look at. And what I like about this now is this is a much simpler list that we can now start to work with this. So now within this list of content pillar topics, I want you to give me 3 to 5 subtopics under each item that could potentially be topics that I could blog or create content around. So now now that I've refined it down, now I'm going to expand on it. And this would be the way that I would work with a client as well. I would try and first refine it down and boil it down to its essentials, and then start to come up with the kind of the subsections or the subtopics. So those aren't bad. Not perfect, but you can see how we can start to refine these. So we could take one, for example, podcasting, and we could boil that one down. Authority content, that would be a bit too meta to work on right now. So I'm going to pick something else. So we have lead generation, inbound marketing fundamentals, effective lead magnets, web optimization for lead capture. So we could continue now to narrow down on this. We already did some stuff on UVP last week, so and you can watch the live stream. It's on my YouTube. Authority content, we could boil that down, but I think I don't want to do that right now, just because it would be a little bit too meta and it would just get confusing because of that. Video marketing or podcasting or lead gen might be simple ones to go on. Community building is not one I know a whole lot about. In terms of growing a LinkedIn network, that makes sense. There's a lot of simple topics there. So let's just pick one I know quite well, which is podcasting. So I want to focus down on the core topic of podcasting in the context of building authority and personal brand for an expert business. Can you give me 15 topics that would make for useful and interesting content to help my target audience with this in order to achieve their goals? Okay, not a perfect prompt, but not bad. So this will get us start moving down the road of actually creating the specific topics. So and there's nothing happening. It's still waiting here. I have noticed with the ChatGPT app, which is what I'm using here, that sometimes it's a little bit finicky. It's not as stable as the website version. But what it does have is the voice interaction feature, which is good. So I'm not sure what's happened here, if it's just not working. Let's see. Something went wrong. Please try reloading. Okay, so let's try that here. So don't know if there's a reload option here. So what I'll do is I'll kill the ChatGPT app, start it again, and then reload. So there you go. Okay, so what it had actually finished. So here's 15 topics centered around podcasting for building authority and personal brand in an expert business domain. And it's given me 15 potential topics. And it's given me all of the potential titles here for this as well. So you can see how this is creating a list of potential things that we can work on here. Now, what we could do is we can just dive into one of these. And so, for example, a step-by-step guide to starting strong for your podcast. I've already got a podcast launch workbook and an entire book called 33 Ways Not to Screw Up Your Business Podcast, which is about that. But we could do some more on that here. If there's something that you haven't done already, you could dive into that. So we could pick any one of these and say, I want to do a mini series about that. So let's just pick one. For example, okay, I want you to help me create a series of content on number 14, repurposing content. And I want you to give me 12 different pieces of content that I could do and make some of them podcast episodes, some of them live streams, and some of them blog posts. Can you give me titles and formats for each of those? So I'm just getting it to, and I'm just getting it to kind of give me a mix here. And I'm doing this more for the benefit of the live stream rather than, I would probably just stick to one by one myself if I was doing this for myself. But I just want to kind of give you an idea of how this might work here. So suggesting 12 pieces of content, and we're diving down now on the repurposing part. So here we go. So podcast episode, let me just get that for you. So you can see here what we're doing is we're each time we're getting answers back, we're refining it and refining it. Now, what we can do is so we've dived into one of these topics. So we have our pillar topics here, which is the main topics, and then we've dived down into podcasting, which is here, and then within podcasting we've dived down further into content repurposing, just that one piece. So what we've done is we've gone down 3 levels deep here, and now we have a bunch of different ideas for this. So what we could do is we could say, so for this one here, you could start with just one piece of content on each of these and then dive down further. So it depends on the way that you want to approach it and what you think is going to be most important. And in fact, if you're not sure about that, you can ask and get some help. So I'm not sure what content would be the most effective for me to start building my personal brand, building authority, and generating leads for my business. Can you suggest which topics I should focus on and in what order of priority? So now it's going to do some sort of rational, logic-based thing based on all of the input that we've given it. I'm just going to get that to scroll up. And okay, so, and it's giving me in the order. I think probably this is the order that it had before. So let's see. So personal branding, foundational, and then authority content. So it's saying start with personal branding. And so this actually should all be in alignment with what I showed you earlier. Let's see if I can show this here. This should be in alignment with this. So the branding, so specialization and positioning and messaging and point of view, that's your branding there, that piece. And then creating your content strategy, and then you're having an offer and content distribution. And that is in alignment with what we just did here, which is the personal branding, authority, content, lead generation. So I think that this is pretty good now. Now, what we can also do is we can ask it to give us a suggestion for how to actually fit this into our calendar. So assuming that I have about 4 hours a week to spend on content creation, can you give me a suggestion on what a month's worth of content should look like for me and what I should prioritize? If you can give me 3 months worth of content in the form of a table, that would be very useful. And so now let's see. I said 4 hours a week because I don't want to overdo it, but I do want to give it something useful to work with. So now I realize it's making this a little bit smaller here, but this is pretty cool. What it's giving me out here, it's giving me a blog post, a podcast, and a video for each week or each month. Okay, so month one, focus personal brand, creating authority content, lead generation. Now, one thing I know that could be happening here is because I'm talking about using content and creating content to build authority, and that content is about building authority, it can get confused. So that should not be happening for you unless you're also talking to people about building authority. But in terms of creating the content and you should be able to come up with something like this. So, okay, so for month one, month one is a blog post on defining your value proposition, a video on crafting an impactful LinkedIn profile, and a podcast, collaborative content opportunities, and then a blog post on creating content that positions you as an authority. So we go through month one, then month two, month three. So, okay, so this is pretty good as a content calendar. It's not perfect, but again, the idea here is that we're using these tools in order to not start with a blank slate. So we're using these so that we're not looking at that white page and trying to figure out where we're going to go. It is not perfect, but it's a damn good place to start from. And so what you can do then is you can export this. And by the way, one thing that you can do is in terms of the formats and output that you get from this, you can ask it for something like a CSV file. So can you give me that table as a CSV file so I can export it and bring it into Google Sheets or Excel? And now this is going to give us the CSV file. And so what you can do with a CSV is, and it gives you the instructions here, you copy paste it into text edit like Notepad or text edit and save it with the CSV extension. And then you can actually take this and import it into Google Sheets or Excel. And it'll have the whole thing formatted the way it did in the table. And if you're not happy with how this table is formatted, so it is kind of weird the way it did, the weeks going vertically and the months going across, you could swap it around. So what you could do is you can ask it to, you can actually just say, hey, can you give me that table again, but this time put the months as the rows and the weeks as columns. You can do stuff like that as well. I'm not going to bother doing that here. Don't want to waste time with that. So yeah, so that's the basics of creating a content strategy, and you can see how you come up with something really pretty solid here very, very quickly. And the content, the suggestions that it's given us here are good. Again, they're not great, they're not perfect, but these are really great places to start from. One other thing to think about then is, okay, so let's say you want to work on something. I'm going to pick one of these. Okay, so I want your help with the blog post, Growing Your LinkedIn Network, that you suggested. So first off, I want you to suggest 3 titles for this blog post written in the style of Copy Blogger headlines. So Copy Blogger is, and I said Cloppy, I did. So it's Copy Blogger, which is an old school copywriting blog. And they have great headlines. They had a magnetic headline series, which is super. So asking for help with the actual blog post, see what can it suggest us in terms of titles. So again, I'm just wanted to, here we go. So expand your influence, the unconventional guide to growing your LinkedIn network, unlock the LinkedIn loop. I'm not crazy about any of those. What I would normally do in this scenario is I'd ask it for 12 and then I'd go through them all. And I would pick out bits that I like. I don't use any of them verbatim. but I would use them. I'd use pieces of each one. So you could say, I like the expand your influence bit, and I like the mastering the art of network. So can you combine number 1 and number 3 for me? Something like that. Cool. So, okay. So now we have a title for this. And can you give me an outline for a 700-word blog post with this title? And so this is going to give a very basic outline. And again, this won't be good enough for you. And if you are an expert in your field, you should be able to create something that's much better than this. But you can use dictation and the tools that we just went through. In particular, you can use those dictation tools along with something like the bullet points it's giving us here. And that will help you to actually write the blog post. So this isn't great, but it's not terrible either. So let's see. In terms of writing a blog post about growing your LinkedIn network, I wouldn't really bother with writing a section on why LinkedIn. It really likes to get quite formal. It likes to have an introduction and a conclusion on everything that it does. I think it's more important to have an opening hook, compelling opening hook, and a call to action at the end. So those are more important. We'll talk about those at another time. But you can see here, the stuff that it's got here is actually pretty good. Not great. Again, this is all, it's like C- content. It's mediocre, and it's up to you then to refine it, make it better. So that is the blog post outline, and you can do that for everyone, and you can use that. So one way to use this is to have the outline in front of you and start speaking to each point, but hit record on something like Otter or one of those tools, and have it record you speaking your thoughts on those. And then what you can do is you can take the text that you've just dictated in, and you can then ask either ChatGPT or something like Claude to tidy it up. I'm just going to show you briefly Claude. So Claude is an AI tool as well, and I'm going to let's see. I've got a chat that I'm working on here with Claude, and this is a list of opening hooks. And you can see I've been putting together a list of opening hooks that I have sourced from a bunch of different places. And I'm trying to make an exhaustive list of really great opening hooks for content. And so you can see I've got up to 216. And so now I'm asking it to take that list and categorize it. And so you can put a lot of text into Claude that you can't put into ChatGPT because it's too long. So here's a podcast episode, and here's what went in. So this is my podcast with Stephen Lewis, and I'm just going to scroll to the bottom of this. I just want to give you an idea of how much we've uploaded. Right, so we've uploaded literally just exactly an hour of conversation here, and so we're able to paste that into Claude, and then get Claude to. You can see the instructions I'm giving it here. Give me 3 titles in the style of copy blogger. Give me the show notes. Give me a topic, give me the speakers, key insights, strategies, and process from that. And so this is, so when I'm processing and working on a podcast, it's suggesting me titles, the show notes for this already, and then some of the things that people will learn. So these are the tools that I'm using to process text. And so you can see how if you bring up ChatGPT and you record yourself talking through these bullet points, and then take what you've just said about each of those bullet points and ask it then to refine what you've said, it's going to be your words and your thoughts, and it's going to be tidied up, and you're going to be able to create content with this very, very quickly, assuming that you're an expert in what you do, which I assume that you are if you're watching a show called The Recognized Authority. So that's how I create a content strategy for my clients, with my clients when we're working on this. And all the things that we did here, we would have done 3-5 years ago as well. We would have just done them much slower, and it would have, like I said, we've got these processes that we go through, and when I'm working with my clients on this kind of thing, we work through this process as well. A lot of this we work through manually, and now we're able to do this a lot quicker with ChatGPT, and still get the same result. So yeah, so that's it. I'm gonna kill the screen share and come back to you here. So that is how to create a content strategy with AI. And if you have any questions for me, please send them in, and I'd be delighted to help. If you want any help with the prompts or anything like that, you can see that I do deal with it in a very conversational way. So I'm literally just asking questions and chatting back and forth. And the way that I did it here on this live stream, certainly by no means perfect. I misspoke and I didn't use the perfect prompts. Even if you don't use perfect prompts, it's still much going to give you much better results than if you weren't using it. And that's what I think is really powerful, is the way it helps us to do things much quicker. And I think that if you have an expert in the driving seat, that's when these tools are really powerful. Because if you're already an expert in what you do, then you know the right questions to ask and you know the right things to talk about. And the other powerful thing to do is to ask it to ask you questions in order to achieve your goal. So tell it what the goal is and then say, ask me questions to help me get there. And then you give it your answers back to those things. And also, take your time. I rush through this a lot because I'm on a live stream here and I don't want to make you sit around watching me, take my time to answer all those questions. But if you take your time to answer those questions a bit more, and with these dictation tools, when you're not speaking, it's just waiting. It's okay. You can have dead air. So when I'm using those dictation tools, sometimes I won't say anything for a minute or two as I'm trying to formulate my thoughts. That's okay too. But remember that you can use ChatGPT and the AIs to clean up afterwards for you. So it's not going to take what you've said verbatim, unless you want to do it that way. But typically what you'll do is you'll actually get it to refine it afterwards. So if you want my help on any of this, I'm actually running a bootcamp in November. So it's going to be from next Thursday. If you go to therecognizedauthority.com/bootcamp, you can find out more about that. And it's going to be, the goal is to help you exercise the content creation muscle. So get started creating content. I want to help people get a win on the board before the end of the year. So let's start creating some content together. I'm going to have some focus work sessions and I'm going to have some led training sessions where I lead the training session on a particular topic. So, and then the focus work sessions are where you're actually doing the content, creating the content while we're on the call. So I'm going to be working on my content in the background, and I find that that's a really great way to make progress. So if you want to learn more about that, visit therecognizedauthority.com/bootcamp. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this useful and I'd love to get your feedback. So please send me a message on any of the socials, wherever you saw this, and please hit reply on any of my emails. I read all of the replies and I reply to all the replies as well. So again, thank you, and I hope you found this useful.